Hey everyone, welcome to the Coffee People podcast presented by Roastery Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastery.com. Thank you for being here today. I'm your host, Ryan Woldt. You can follow or subscribe to this show wherever you're listening, but you'll only find the best bonus context, links, and recaps to this episode on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. This is a bonus episode featuring Emily Lavalier. She's the owner and artist behind MLav Art, and a trip leader at Hammer Residences, where she and a team guide adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities on fun-filled vacation adventures. I had the privilege of meeting Emily about 2 decades ago when we were young adults, just hustling at hospitality jobs and dreaming of a day where we'd get to follow our dreams, which were artist for her and obviously podcasting for me. Actually, I don't think podcasting was around yet. Coincidentally, the restaurant we both worked at, the Old Fashioned in Capitol Square, Madison, Wisconsin, was also the very first place that I brewed a coffee or pulled an espresso for anyone. That includes myself. I wasn't drinking coffee back then. And in retrospect, if you were one of the many people who sat at the Sunday brunch bar in the early 2000s, ordered a shot of espresso to go with your eggs and bacon, many, many apologies. I have no doubt that was not a very good cup of coffee. I wanted to chat with Emily to learn more about her art career, where it's gone, and full disclosure, I have an original MLav art piece and several prints from her stored away, just waiting for a permanent place on our walls when we get settled here up in Oregon. But more so, I was excited to learn more about her work with Hammer Travel, where the work that they're doing goes so much further than planning trips. If you want to follow along or multitask while you listen to our show today, check out mlavart.com and hammertravel.org. Okay, let's get started. I've got this cup of Papua New Guinea single origin from Sisters Coffee in Sisters, Oregon today, and I hope that you've got a full mug of some sort of excellent coffee to enjoy as well as you listen to our bonus episode of the Coffee People podcast featuring Emily Lavalier, artist. Cheers.
Well, I'm Emily Lavalier. I'm a collage artist, so I use magazines to make my work. So lots of layers. I should say I use paper to make my work. So I use mostly magazines, but I'm also kind of cutting and layering, kind of whatever I can find, mixed media. I make pretty dense collages. I call it high density collage. So it's lots of layers kind of within my work. It's more of like a textured finished product. And then, kind of trying some of these suitcases too lately, which is a good tie-in to the Hammer Travel, which is kind of my other. Yeah.
I haven't seen the suitcase thing yet. I don't know if you remember this. The last time I remember seeing you, in full disclosure, everyone, I know Emily. We used to work together when we were kids. Which is anything under anything that's like a day younger than I am now, I consider a kid. I remember we having a bagel with you. There's a place near where we work called New York Bagels, and I remember you telling me about your artwork at that coffee, however many years ago.
Yeah,
and I remember you telling me you worked with collage, and I think you showed me one. And I didn't quite understand it. And now we fast forward and you've made like a career out of it and you've jumped into it. I think I want to ask first, what you obviously you said you work with paper, but when you say high density, what does that mean to you? Like if you were to describe this artwork to someone in an elevator, what is it?
Yeah, I would say that the layering is a big part of the process. So it's kind of bigger pieces first. I don't really stress too much about that original image that I'm drawing. So I use larger pieces of paper to kind of figure out what my design is going to be. And then from there, I'm building up with more paper. So just using smaller and smaller pieces. So kind of whenever you look at it, you're seeing some of the textures or the pictures that were in those magazines also now on my piece, because I'm not really painting on it on any of them. I'm just using, the paper directly from the source, kind of giving it a second life. So,
The place that
yeah,
you are combining all of this paper, do you have like, this is what this is going to look like when I'm done, and it's just a combination of all these different pieces I'm seeing in my head that's fitting together. I have some of your artwork, so I'm asking a little bit
yeah,
for the audience, and we'll share some imagery as well.
yeah.
So, do you start
Um,
with an idea? This is what I want it to be, or do you let it come to you?
I mostly start with what I want it to be. Yeah, my very first step is kind of sketching out a very basic sketch of kind of like, okay, so each one of these, this is going to be a cocktail when I'm done with it. This is going to be a flamingo when I'm done with it. And then the way I work is I usually have a few pieces going at once. So if I find a really good magazine page that has a lot of colors that I might need for a piece that I'm like, oh, this will look really good on the cocktail, then I'll switch gears and kind of go work on that one. So I do know, yeah, where I'm going kind of when I start,
You
more
have,
or
I
less.
mean, what looks like hundreds of magazines kind of stacked up behind you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. This is just a small part of the collection,
are
too.
there some magazines that are better than others for this kind of work?
Yeah. I tend to stick with more National Geographics and really current magazines. I love like interior design magazines. I use a lot of cooking magazines. I had a whole fruit series, which I still do, kind of draw back on the fruits too. And those, I use a lot of cooking magazines for those, and home decor magazines. I do know there's collage artists out there who will stick to vintage magazines, and that is cool, and it's totally a, vibe and effect. But I think that just the way I'm sealing them and gluing them and preserving them, newer magazines tend to kind of work better for what I'm doing. But lots of different ways of doing it.
We have an original avocado of yours
Hmm.
and a couple of
Yeah,
prints. If someone gave me that avocado, I wouldn't have known necessarily that it was magazines right up,
yeah,
like instinctively,
yeah.
which I think is super cool that it looks like something else that it isn't. How did you get started or interested in collage in the first place? Did you have a background in art when you were younger, or what was the path that you took to get into that?
Yeah, I loved making art. I took art classes in high school, took art classes in college, and truly those were the classes I probably put most time and energy into. And we both went to Madison, right? I mean, I don't know, I spent the most time on my art classes than anything else, but really did not foresee making and doing art being a career path when I was in my, early 20s. So I was thinking more digital layout, graphic design, which is funny because that would have been working for magazines, and now it's like tying it all back together. Now I'm using magazines to make my work, which is, maybe that is part of the reason I'm drawn to using magazines in the first place. But I'd say that I started using paper to kind of create my work, as opposed to incorporating paint and incorporating colored pencils, which I did do. But then once I started using the magazines and having more fun with the magazines, you don't have to be perfect. Things can kind of like come together by just adding more pieces. That's when once I started working in magazines, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do anything else. That it started as scrapbooking, really. So I had a big bin of scrapbooking papers, and when there were archivers stores and you could go in and buy a bunch of different scrapbooking papers, I used to do that all the time. So I do think that my love of paper started then, when I was doing scrapbooking, and then it turned into making greeting cards, and those I would use paper but also kind of incorporate little illustrations with them. And then once I kind of went full on into just using paper and kind of creating the style, I felt like at the time it was really unique. And yeah, so I really just kind of went hard into it. Felt like I was doing something I hadn't seen too much of. So
You mentioned you were taking art classes, but you were thinking something else, design or something creative but related, but not
mhm,
artist. Do you
right.
remember the first time you said out loud that you were an artist?
It'd probably be pretty recently, to be honest. I mean, I was 29 when I decided to really start investing a lot of money into this. Kind of creating, I do a lot of outdoor art shows. So that is a whole thing in its own. I feel like the way to kind of make money as an artist is to either be really big on social media and kind of draw a following that way, to either be in galleries, which long term I would love to do more of that. I think teaching, there's a lot of artists that do, classes, and that's the way that they're and then kind of the art show circuit, which is the path that I took, which does involve like getting a tent, building shelving, figuring out how you're going to display everything and keep it safe in all different kinds of weather. So that costs money. And so
Yeah.
I think that really when I was starting to just kind of really go hard in this direction, I still had another job. I still had other ways to make money, but I was like, I I guess I want to do this artist thing. I saw other people being successful at it, and I was, so maybe it was back then when I was like 30 and starting to get into the art show circuit. But now, 10 years later, I would say I'm an artist because it's kind of the main thing that I do.
Any of the coffee people listening who've worked in like a food cart or on a coffee stand sort of thing or outdoors, the thing that no one thinks about when they think about artists or other businesses is the impact of the weather. I actually my the tent that I use for outdoor shows, I currently have set up in the yard where we're living, so that the dog can go outside without getting rained on, which is
That's
all the
smart.
time. But it turned out I just leave it now because the birds also like it. So I sit and watch the birds under the tent every morning. You mentioned you had other careers and other things. I remember you being a travel agent. You were working as a trip leader. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Your work with Hammer Residences now, and kind of how you got into that, and the audience that you're working with, that you're helping guide on these trips.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to go back just a tiny bit to maybe when I was in my just kind of getting this off the ground. I had a job where I was helping folks with disabilities find gainful employment. So it was real jobs, community based jobs. And I would go around to different businesses and say, could you use someone to help you on site? This person I'm supporting is really passionate about coffee and they want to work at a coffee shop. So that was a lot of that. So that was when I got kind of introduced to the, I guess, human services field. Then I was, like I said, decided to start spending a lot of time and energy and money to make this job, kind of my art career, come off the ground. So I moved into group homes, working in group homes. But the thing that got me applying for that job, the group home job, was that the job description was listed as like group home employee / trip leader. And I was like, trip leader, what is this? So turns out Hammer, the company that I worked for a really pretty long time, has a travel division. Right when I started working at the company, I started as a trip leader. So I would work in the group homes. And then whenever there was a Hammer travel trip that went, my boss would reach out to me and say, hey, can you be the trip leader? So they would kind of pull me out of the homes and I would go on these vacations with these individuals. So they were mostly people who lived in group homes. They didn't necessarily have to be with our company. They might live with their parents, but need some extra support. And they just have to be over 21. But yeah, mostly people with intellectual developmental disabilities would come on these Hammer travel trips where we are going really around the country. And now it's turned into even international trips. I've gone to Iceland. The company's gone to Ireland. I think they've done London. So I do a lot of Disney trips. I've done Las Vegas. I've done a couple cruises. And then you kind of go, I check out of my art world. There's really, when you're on those trips, you are go, go, go the entire time because you are, following the itinerary that either my boss gives me or we kind of plan. There's a lot of wiggle room on these trips, kind of what we want to do, or the weather might change things. So we will, we also are passing meds. We're, making sure everyone is fed and, we're eating 3 good meals a day. And then, yeah, making sure everyone's having fun. Transportation, we do rental cars. So I had, previously even to starting the art career, previous to working in human services, I was a travel agent right out of college. And so this Hammer travel division just really felt like it was like connecting with a lot of these different things that I had done in my past. I had traveled a lot. I had worked in human services. Um, I guess the
That's
art
the
thing's
part
not
I
super
think.
fun.
Yeah, that's the part that I thought was really interesting is the audience that you're working with to take on these trips. Traveling
Mm-hmm.
is challenging enough, just for myself, much less like taking other people or planning for other people. What made you feel like you were the right person to work with people with disabilities, intellectual or otherwise? And how does that change your perspective of the places that you're visiting by being there with a group of people who see the world differently than you?
Yeah. Um, I mean, that's a good question. We're all pretty much experiencing it, a lot of the same things. Disney, you can't really go as a trip leader and not just feel stressed the entire time because there's so many people, and we've got a group of usually it's 12 or less folks that are with us. So I do have a team when I go. So I'll be kind of the leader, but then we have volunteers that will come who usually I'll have a team of either 2 or 3 other staff that are helping me. But yeah, as far as like, I mean, I was passionate about traveling. I had done it enough that I felt comfortable leading other people. I also am a huge advocate of what my boss of Hammer Travel, really, when he started the company, his goal was to provide, these travel experiences for individuals, but without making it feel like a tour or like a school, to just kind of really, um, give them as much independence as you and me would want on a trip. We don't roll up in buses. We come in a regular car where we are doing all the same things that anyone else traveling would do, except for sometimes we'll need a lot more like wheelchair accessible ramps. But really, other than that, we're really trying to experience these places in the same way. And that's what I love about it is that, you're not thinking of this person as a person with a disability first. You're thinking of them as a traveler first. They're someone who's here to see the places. And they just need someone to kind of remind them to stay with the group or, they don't need, I, yeah. And I mean, we divide up too. So that's even a bad example, but
Well, I think, knowing what little I know about my wife's work as an occupational therapist, she works a lot with autism and other special needs. Routine is such an important key to a lot of her students, a lot of her the kids that she works with. And so taking a trip is like the opposite of routine. You're creating mini routines for a very short period of time, but it is not the same as your day to day. And so
right.
what I find fascinating is the not just the willingness to do it, but the ability to take people of different skill sets and skill levels and organize them enough to have everyone be enjoying this trip. Maybe everyone but you for brief moments at Disneyland, but in general,
uh,
getting them out and saying,
yeah.
"Hey, this is the world." Do you? This is a little bit of. I hope this isn't a terribly ignorant question, but when you are out with a group, do you feel that other people are seeing you as a group, where other people are saying, "Oh, this is a normalizing situation," or for them, not just for your group?
I'd say it's maybe a little bit of both. I think that, in general, most people will just be like, oh, cool. A lot of people will come and be like, oh, what you're doing is so cool. On airplanes, I've never had anyone give our group any grief. And I mean, sometimes we've got people who have a hard time sitting still for the whole trip or, who are go to the bathroom, 6 times on a 3-hour flight or whatever. So, but I've honestly, 95% of people in the world either don't even really acknowledge us or think that it's cool and they're going to give us a little extra grace or um, patience. But there are probably some people, I guess, who will want to be like, oh, here comes a big group, let's get in there first. But that doesn't really happen too much.
Hey, I don't blame anyone for trying to get in ahead of the group.
I know.
That is not. I'm not going to get upset about that. Hey everyone, sorry about the quick break. Thank you for tuning in to our show, the Coffee People Podcast. This episode is presented, as are all episodes, by Roastar Coffee Packaging. You can find them online at roastery.com. They provide high quality, affordable packaging for coffee, tea, snacks, and anything else you'd like to put in a small package. I thank them for supporting Coffee People, the podcast, and Coffee People, all of you, by offering low minimum quantity orders and making it easy to create customizable packaging for your company. Please check out roastery.com. And now, back to the show. Cheers. With the artwork that you're doing, do you find your work with the travel organizations and with Hammer, and do you find any skills or values that overlap into your art, or do those two worlds just stay separate for you, or do you find that there's some sort of overlap as you come back from a trip and you get back into, oh, I'm an artist now?
Yeah, that is was one of your questions that you had sent before, kind of thinking about the overlap. And at first I was thinking, they are pretty separate. It's a good way for me to kind of just take a break from the art world and go and do this thing that's totally different. But really that's not true. I think that staying organized and also thinking on your feet is a lot of something you have to do in this art world, especially when you're doing an active show or when you're doing a show. You really have to think, okay, now there's this huge tree here. What am I going to do to change my booth and my setup to make things more accessible to, everyone who comes in the same way that when you're in a trip, a lot of things come up and suddenly you're like, okay, how am I just going to be flexible in this situation and not, yell at the promoter of a show about the tree? You just kind of have to be flexible and realize that it's not a lot of things you just can't really control, and you just kind of go with the punches. I also think that with Hammer Travel, I kind of said this, organization is so key. Keeping all their money counted every night, making sure everyone's financially on track and that our group is on track. And, that of course plays into running a small business and making sure that you're paying your taxes on time and doing all the, paperwork and, filing and stuff that you have to.
How much of your artwork is business and how much of it is creative artwork? I mean, if you could, I know you can't just say like this percent, but I find that I do so much more what I consider the crappy business side of things than I get to do this part, which is the part stuff that I like.
Yeah. Right now it's the winter, and so I don't have a lot of shows. And so I've gotten to kind of experiment with a few things like these little suitcases, which I do want to show you one. They are like air dry clay wrapped in magazine. It's more like paper mache, I think, and working with clay. And that is something that's totally different. It's not really something that I'm going to bring to shows, but it's been really fun for the last month to be able to be like, okay, this is like me having fun as an artist and not doing something because, this is what I can sell at art shows. But now that it's January and I have to start really thinking about the fact that my season's going to start in 2 months, now it's a lot more like, okay, what do I know that people will buy, and how quickly can I make it, I guess.
Does it matter if you get paid? I mean, you're an artist no matter what, but getting paid makes it feel, for me, a little bit like I'm always a little bit worried about that, because if I don't get paid for something, I can't keep doing the other things that I want to do. So when you are working on something new, does that ever creep in, the stress of going, oh, this isn't something that I'm going to end up putting out on the shelf? Or I guess, how does that impact you? I think the first time I was ever given money for something I made, it was really shocking for one, but I almost felt like I should give them some money back. And I still feel that way. I mean, this morning someone ordered a book from me and I went, oh, that's so cool. And I wanted to like reach out and then be like, you know what? You paid too much. Like, let me give you $3 back or whatever. No. You're not feeling that?
I mean, I remember
Imposter
the first
syndrome.
Yeah. Oh, that is, I mean, every time I open social media, I get that for sure. But, I do remember the first like sales of originals that I made at shows that were, at the time, like $700 or something, right? And I just, when someone bought it, it was like the coolest feeling in the world. Like, same thing. I didn't even, and it is funny when someone buys something big, and even now, after doing this for, 10 years or whatever, I still will kind of forget to ring them up because I'm just so excited that they just like committed to having this piece in their house. And this is such a big investment. And then I'll be like, oh yeah, wait. We have to do like the thing where I actually take your money from you. Like, I am just so bad at that because I just get so excited in the moment when people want to like support your work like that. But yeah, I mean, I think when I first started doing shows, and especially when I started traveling outside of the country or outside of the state for shows, like I live in Minnesota, the Midwest art scene is one thing for sure. There's people who do really successful here, but I went down to Florida and did a couple shows, and there you see these artists who are, I mean, they are really good at what they're doing, and they are making, um, you know, lots of sales. And so kind of seeing that and being like, oh my gosh, this could be a really good business. That really was what motivated me to really start working harder and start making my stuff like, okay, do I start framing it? How do I seal it to make things more archival? Yeah, just really thinking like, when you see other people doing it, then it's like, okay, wait, I can make this into something that I can do full time. So,
Well, that role modeling, I think, also relates back to your work with the travel group. I mean, when somebody's out and they see a group of people with intellectual disabilities out traveling, taking a vacation, they may have someone in their life, right?
mhm.
That is going through the same thing, or they wouldn't have maybe thought, oh, we could do the same thing, and it might inspire them to do that. I always find seeing someone else like kind of lead the way makes it easier. I mean, no
Oh,
matter what. So that's why that I
100%.
find so much value in that part of what you're doing for your career. Although I feel like you'd probably do it even if it wasn't part of your job. I just get that impression. But I'm wondering in the time that you've been working, in the time that you've been an artist, and the time that you've been working in travel and working in human services, how have you changed? I mean, do you find that do you think you're the same person that say I knew 15 years ago, or what has been kind of your progression of
Yeah,
maybe 20 years, Emily? I'm not actually
I
sure.
know, probably 20. Um, I would say that moving into the human service field, that first job where I was helping folks find jobs was probably the biggest shift in kind of who I was or who I am. That happened. I mean, post college for sure. It just made me more patient, way more apt to start thinking about people's perspectives, like put yourselves in their shoes. Even if someone cuts you off on the road, okay, man, that person must have a really crappy day. Like, just really thinking about what other people are going through first, because so it's not even the folks living in the group home necessarily, but their parents and what their parents maybe went through to get them into this group home. So maybe I'm judging the parents for whatever being late for their pickup time, but then you're like, all the work that parent had to do to find a placement for their loved one to move into a group home. But then also the individuals that you support on these vacations, living and working in the group homes, doing the employment. Yeah, just really opened my eyes to a whole part of the world that I really wasn't that connected with. My mom worked in group, or not, my mom worked in nursing homes when I was growing up. So I knew a little bit about elderly care, but I didn't know very much at all about what people were going through when they were born with disabilities. So yeah, that was a really, yeah, opened my eyes. And then of course going on the trips with folks. I mean, it is like you just see all types of people when you're traveling, and the good and the bad. And I mean, I just this summer did a road trip with Hammer Travel down to Branson, which is, I mean, 10 hours in the car, I think. I think we did 6 hours one day and 4 the next day. And so you're just, yeah, I mean, being in a car with people, anyone, even your best friends for that long, you're like, really start to get to know people's preferences and, yeah, their quirks, I guess, things that you shouldn't say. Like, don't bring up the Badgers if you've got a huge Gopher fan in the car. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks on a much less noble cause of driving to spring break with strangers
I've
in
done that
college.
too.
So yeah, you put yourself in a car with someone for long enough, and you will find something you don't like about them, but hopefully something you like as well.
Yes.
I'm wondering, uh, is there such a thing as good art? What is
That's a
is
funny
there such a thing as
question.
bad art? Like,
Yeah.
what is it for you that makes you think, oh, this is art? And I say that too a little bit because you mentioned design. I went to school for graphic design, and I don't necessarily think of them as overlapping, even though they're very similar.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of digital artists that I see at shows now too. So going to school in graphic design, I mean, that does translate into a fine art career actually, which I never would have thought that when I went to college too. Had I known that, I probably would have gone to school for digital art or tried to. But hindsight is 2020. But do I think there's anything as bad art? No, because I think that there are people in this world who will find a place and will connect to a piece, even if it is not really something that I would hang in my home. Um, there are people out there making really good careers selling art that I probably would never hang, but they have found their niche. They have found their audience. Maybe their audience are, 75 plus people who just really like, lines and or whatever, art that maybe it's not something that has ever connected to me. When I think back about what I thought and meant to be a good artist, it would be time, right? How much time someone spends on something. Are they, making teeny tiny little cuts of paper, kind of like what I do a little bit, like, oh, my art's good because I spend hours and hours and hours on it. But no, that's not right. Because there are lots of people who can make really cool art, and it's something that they've just mastered their technique and they've found their audience. And I have definitely changed my perspective on art since I started doing shows and being introduced to so many different artists. Even on social media, I'm fed the kind of art that I like, right? So I'm seeing a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh man, that is so cool. I wish I could do that. It's paper art. It's time consuming. But then I go to these art shows, and then that's when I'm really seeing all the different styles of art that's out there and all the people that are out there buying it and supporting these artists. Yeah, it doesn't matter how niche you might think their stuff is.
What advice would you give to somebody who is aspiring to work a career in art and maybe not, at the cafe anymore, or maybe both?
Yeah.
Somebody who's thinking, I wish I could be an artist, but hasn't taken that step yet.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, and I have said this actually to people in the past, is that you don't have to be an artist all in. Working at a coffee shop, working in group homes, working as a trip leader are all really good ways to supplement that passion. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your passion is a hobby. That just means that it's a second way to make money. So even if it's doing, Instacart pickups or Uber driving, just trying to not put all your eggs in the art basket right away. Is one thing that I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I had the group homes to fall back on if I needed, or when show seasons weren't busy, I would get hours in the group homes and be able to have kind of two things. So I think a lot of times I see people say, okay, I'm going to be a full-time artist. And then they get to the winter when there's not a lot of money coming in. And then they're like, I'm freaking out. I can't do this anymore. I quit. And it's like, you just really have to push through. If you have to get a second job, if you have to find other ways to kind of get you through to that next big project, like that is totally normal. That is just the world that we live in right now. And I mean, yeah, it took 6 years of doing two jobs for me to be able to finally be like, okay, I think I have enough now, or enough like guaranteed shows on my schedule that I can like leave leave that kind of comfortable, like regular paycheck. But I really don't think that there's anything wrong with that either. Like if someone was in a band, what's wrong with having a part-time job to, be able to make it so that you can do your passion on the nights and weekends, but you're able to not like be freaking out about, are you going to make enough, or are you going to get enough attendance, or
I think actually, if I'm doing the math in my head as we're talking, I made more working at that bar that we worked at than I do now. So, so
but
that
are
you
you
can always
happier
step
now?
backwards. Oh yeah,
That's right.
that was also the first time I ever made coffee for anyone, which I'm not terribly good at. And if I could go back in time and apologize to every single person who ordered an espresso on the Sunday brunch shift, I would. Because my level of training was, here's a button, you should press it, and then hand them the cup.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
what
Yeah.
what comes next for you, for your art? I mean, what you mentioned, you've got a season coming up. How can people support you or share what you're doing?
Well, I mean, definitely checking my stuff out on social media helps. I don't post as regularly as I probably should, but I definitely, that's where I put things like my upcoming schedule. I travel a lot. So I go down to Texas for shows. I go to Florida for shows, Ohio, Illinois, Wisconsin last year. So yeah, I do try to get out to see as many new faces as I can. Last year I did like Oklahoma City, which was the first time I think I'd ever really spent any substantial time in Oklahoma. So yeah, I think that coming to art shows, even if I'm not there, is a good way to just kind of support artists who's this is their jam and they travel a lot and put all their uh, livelihood in the back of a car and travel across the country to, show you their work. So, but me in particular, I do have a website. It's just mlavart.com, which is kind of my autograph, mlav, EMLAV, and then art, mlavart.com is my website. So I do sell prints on there. I sell placemats of my work, which are kind of fun. And then, yeah, I'm just trying new things. Like I said,
What do what do you drink if you stop in at a cafe? Are you coffee? Are you tea? Are you anything? Boba?
I am coffee for sure. In fact, I almost got a coffee today, but then I was like, no, I'm just going to get a case of Spindrift because I'll be able to drink them all day. I do love Spindrift. But yeah, usually it's just drip black with cream for sure. A lot of cream. But I make coffee every morning. It's the my favorite thing to do when I get out of bed.
Coffee machine, or do you brew up like a French press or something else?
Well, don't judge us. My fiance and I are very excited about what we've just implemented in our house, which is we were using a Keurig, but then the microplastics, right? Like we don't need to be drinking the little tiny piece of plastic that comes out. So we got this new reusable pod thing that you
Yeah.
rinse out and then so yeah, we've been on that for probably the last month using the reusable pod. Which you're definitely chewing that like last sip. Like there's a lot of grounds kind of still in there, but it's good. It gets me going through the day. I'm like a half and half. I used to love like Coffee Mate things, but something shifted in my taste buds. I don't know what it is. And now it's like pretty much only half and half. If I get like any sweetener, it just kind of changes the taste of the coffee.
I think that coffee is meant to be drunk at whatever level you're at, and I stopped passing judgment on what people drink when I realized that what I liked changed every couple of years as I got
Yeah.
older and as my taste buds changed. And it reminded me of these two women that used to come into a bar that I worked in, and every Thursday they would get $3 martinis, and they were the cheapest plastic bottle vodka and gin martinis ever. But they were these lovely women in their 70s who had a job at the mall nearby, and one day I remember saying, "Hey, let me buy you like a Kettle One or something better than what you drink. It's on me. You don't have to pay for it." And they both just laughed and laughed and said, "It doesn't matter. We can't taste a thing anyways." And I realized, oh, everyone's at it in the same way that when you're taking a group out on travel, everybody's at a different stage in their life
Yeah.
and progression. So no joke.
Yes.
Uh,
100%. I'll drink hotel coffee when I have to, and that is fine. I am not above that. It's not always the tastiest in their little like reusable or disposable cup, but uh,
We'll leave it at that, and I'll tell you a terrible hotel coffee story off the air.
well, thanks for
Emily,
chatting.
yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing, give me the opportunity to let people know that programs like the one at Hammer Residences exist.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I missed today that you wanted to share?
Well, I mean, if anyone knows anyone who might be interested in the Hammer Travel, that's just like hammertravel.org, where we have all of our trips. They fill up really fast. So whenever the new brochure comes out, you want to call right away and get on trips. But I definitely check out hammertravel.org because that is the greatest company in the world, followed very shortly by Lavart. No, just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's number two for sure. We love our avocado, and
Yay.
it does hold up very well. I don't know what you shellacked it with, but it was over our stove for the last couple of years. So olive
Nice.
oil splatter, whatever was on steam,
Yeah.
the whole deal. It survived.
Good. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Good. Well, I'm so glad that you thought of me, and thank you for bringing me on your podcast. I hope that this
Oh,
turns
it'll be
into an
good.
episode for you.
One more time for the cheap sheets. Bleh.